Hey there, and welcome to True Scary Stories. Before we dive in, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and drop a comment telling us where you're from and what time you're watching. That helps YouTube know you love creepy stories, and it'll keep sending more your way.
3 creepy true pizza delivery horror stories. Hey everyone, it's me again. Before we dive into tonight's stories, I just want to say thank you for all the support on the last video. You guys have been requesting more delivery driver stories, and let me tell you, I've got some that'll make you think twice about ordering late at night. Tonight, I'm sharing 3 true stories from pizza delivery drivers who experience things that still haunt them to this day. These aren't your typical, weird customer stories. These are the ones that made drivers quit their jobs, move towns, and never look back. So turn off your lights, put on your headphones, and whatever you do, don't order pizza while listening to this. Let's get started. Story 1. The House on Maple Grove. This first story comes from a guy named Tyler, who was working as a delivery driver for a popular pizza chain in rural Pennsylvania back in 2019. Tyler had been delivering pizzas for about 2 years at that point, mostly to pay his way through community college. He'd seen his fair share of weird stuff on the job. Drunk people, people who answered the door in bizarre costumes, even a guy who tried to pay with a live chicken once. But nothing, and I mean nothing, prepared him for what happened that October night. It was around 10:30 p.m. on a Thursday. The restaurant was pretty dead, which was normal for a weeknight. Tyler was in the back, scrolling through his phone, when a delivery order popped up on the screen. Large pepperoni pizza, breadsticks, and a 2-liter of Coke. The address was 1847 Maple Grove Road. Tyler stared at the address for a second. Maple Grove Road was way out in the sticks, about a 20-minute drive from town, down a bunch of winding back roads. Most drivers hated deliveries out there because the tips were usually garbage, and it ate up a lot of time. But Tyler didn't mind. It was a slow night, and he'd rather be driving than standing around in the restaurant. He grabbed the pizza and headed out to his car, a beat-up 2004 Honda Civic that barely ran. The engine coughed to life, and he punched the address into his GPS. The automated voice told him his destination was 23 minutes away. He cranked up his music and headed out. The first 15 minutes of the drive were fine. He passed through the small downtown area, then on to the county roads where streetlights became scarce. His headlights cut through the darkness, illuminating cornfields on either side of the road. The corn was tall this time of year, reaching well over 6 feet, swaying slightly in the wind. There was something unsettling about driving past endless rows of corn at night, like you couldn't see what might be hiding just beyond the stalks. Tyler tried not to think about it. His GPS eventually told him to turn right onto Maple Grove Road. The moment his car made the turn, the paved road gave way to gravel. His tires crunched loudly against the rocks, and his headlights seemed dimmer somehow, like the darkness here was thicker. There were no other houses visible, just more cornfields and dense patches of trees. After another 5 minutes of driving, his GPS announced, "You have arrived at your destination." Tyler slowed down and looked around. To his right, barely visible through a cluster of overgrown trees, was a driveway. No mailbox, no house number, nothing. Just 2 dirt tire tracks leading into the woods. He checked the order on his phone again. This was definitely the place. He turned into the driveway, his car bouncing over potholes and exposed roots. The trees on either side were so thick that their branches formed a canopy overhead, blocking out even the moonlight. His headlights were the only source of light now, and they barely penetrated the darkness ahead. After what felt like forever, but was probably only a minute or 2, the trees opened up, and Tyler saw the house. It was old. Really old. A 2-story farmhouse with peeling white paint and a sagging porch. Most of the windows were dark, but there was a single light on in one of the upstairs windows, a dim, flickering light, like from a candle. The yard was overgrown with weeds, and there was an old rusted truck parked off to the side, half consumed by vines. Tyler felt a knot form in his stomach. Something about this place felt wrong. He sat in his car for a moment, staring at the house, debating whether he should just leave. But he needed the money. And besides, it was probably just some old person who lived out here. Lots of elderly folks lived in places like this. He grabbed the pizza and stepped out of his car. The gravel crunched under his feet, and immediately, he noticed how quiet it was. No crickets, no wind, nothing. Just silence. The kind of silence that makes your ears ring. Tyler walked up to the porch, the old wooden steps creaking under his weight. He half expected them to collapse. When he reached the front door, he noticed there was no doorbell, just a tarnished brass knocker shaped like a lion's head. He used it to knock 3 times. And then he waited. No response. He knocked again, louder this time. "Pizza delivery!" he called out. Still nothing. Tyler pulled out his phone and dialed the number from the order. It rang once, twice, 3 times, then went to voicemail. A generic automated message. He hung up and tried again. Same thing. He was about to give up and head back to his car when he heard it. A sound from inside the house. Footsteps. Slow, deliberate footsteps, creaking across the floorboards. They were coming from upstairs. Tyler watched as the light in the upstairs window went out. Then, after a few seconds, he saw movement through one of the downstairs windows, just a shadow passing by. The footsteps reached the front door. Tyler could hear breathing on the other side. Heavy, raspy breathing. Pizza delivery?" Tyler said, his voice cracking slightly. The door opened. Just a crack. Tyler couldn't see who was on the other side because the interior of the house was completely dark. But he could feel someone staring at him through that narrow opening. The smell that wafted out was horrendous, a mix of rotting food, mildew, and something else. Something metallic. "That'll be $23.47, Tyler said, trying to keep his voice steady. Silence. Then, a hand reached through the crack in the door. It was pale. Impossibly pale, like the person hadn't seen sunlight in years. The fingers were long and skeletal, with dirt caked under the nails. The hand held out a crumpled $20 bill and a few coins. Tyler didn't want to touch it, but he forced himself to take the money. The hand lingered for a moment, and Tyler could see part of an arm now, covered in strange scars, like scratches or claw marks. He handed the pizza and breadsticks through the crack. The hand grabbed them and pulled them inside. Tyler expected the door to close, but it didn't. It just stayed open, that narrow crack, with darkness on the other side. Do you need change?" Tyler asked. No response. "Okay, well, have a good night," he said, backing away slowly. As he turned to leave, he heard a voice. It was barely a whisper, so quiet he almost didn't catch it. "Thank you for coming." Tyler froze. The voice was strange, too high-pitched, almost childlike, but with an unnatural quality to it. Like it was being forced through a damaged vocal cord. He didn't respond. He just walked quickly back to his car, got in, and started the engine. As he backed out, his headlights swept across the front of the house one more time. And that's when he saw it. In the upstairs window, the one that had been lit before, there was a face. Pressed against the glass. Pale and gaunt, with dark hollow eyes and a wide, unnatural smile. It was a child. Or something that looked like a child. Tyler slammed on the gas and tore out of there, his car fishtailing on the gravel. His heart was pounding so hard he thought it might burst out of his chest. He didn't slow down until he was back on the paved road, miles away from that house. When he got back to the restaurant, his manager asked him why he looked so pale. Tyler lied and said he was feeling sick. He finished his shift, went home, and didn't sleep that night. The next day, he looked up the address online. 1847 Maple Grove Road. He found an old news article from 1987. A family had lived in that house, a mother, father, and their 8-year-old daughter. One night, the father apparently went insane and murdered his wife and daughter before killing himself. Their bodies weren't found for weeks. The house had been abandoned ever since. Tyler quit his job the next day. He never delivered pizza again. And to this day, he swears that the face he saw in that window was the little girl from the article. But here's the thing that still bothers him, the thing that keeps him up at night. If everyone in that house died in 1987, who ordered the pizza? Story 2, The Regular. This next story comes from a woman named Sarah, who worked as a delivery driver in Austin, Texas, for about 3 years. Sarah loved her job. She was a night owl anyway, so working the closing shift, usually until 2 or 3 a.m., didn't bother her. She met interesting people, made decent money, and got to listen to her favorite podcasts while driving. But there was one customer who always made her uncomfortable. They called him the regular at the restaurant because he ordered from them almost every single night. Always the same thing, a medium cheese pizza, extra cheese, well done. Always delivered to the same apartment complex on the east side of town. And he always requested Sarah specifically. At first, Sarah didn't think much of it. Lots of customers have preferences. Some people like certain drivers because they're fast or friendly. But this guy, something about him was off. His name was Marcus, according to the order. He lived in apartment 4B of a rundown complex called Riverside Gardens, though there was nothing garden-like about it. The building was old, with peeling paint and flickering hallway lights. The parking lot was full of potholes, and there was always trash scattered around. Sarah had delivered to Marcus probably 50 times over the course of a year. And every single time, the same thing happened. She'd knock on the door of apartment 4B. She'd hear shuffling inside. Then the door would open, but only a few inches, with the chain lock still on. Marcus would peek through the crack, take the pizza, hand her cash with a generous tip, and close the door. She never got a good look at him, just glimpses. Dark hair, pale skin, maybe in his 30s. He never said anything beyond, "Thank you." It was weird, sure. But Sarah had delivered to weirder people. At least he tipped well. But then, things started to escalate. It started small. One night, when she delivered his pizza, she noticed something strange. As she was walking back to her car, she glanced up at the window of apartment 4B. The curtain was pulled back slightly, and she could see Marcus standing there, watching her. He didn't move or wave, just stood there, staring. Sarah felt a chill run down her spine, but she brushed it off. Maybe he was just making sure she got to her car safely. Some people were paranoid about crime in that neighborhood. But it kept happening. Every time she delivered to him, she'd see him watching her from the window as she left. Then one night, something even stranger happened. It was around 1 a.m., and Sarah was delivering Marcus's usual order. She knocked on the door, and as always, it opened just a crack. But this time, before she could say anything, Marcus spoke. "You have beautiful hair," he said softly. Sarah froze. In all the time she delivered to him, he never said more than, "Thank you." Thanks," she said, handing him the pizza. He took it, but instead of closing the door, he kept staring at her through the crack. She could see his eyes now, dark, intense, unblinking. "Do you ever think about me?" he asked. "What?" Sarah said, taking a step back. "When you're not here. Do you think about me?" I need to get back to work," Sarah stammered, turning to leave. "I think about you," Marcus called after her. "All the time." Sarah practically ran to her car. Her hands were shaking as she started the engine. When she glanced up at the window, Marcus was there again, watching her. She drove back to the restaurant and immediately told her manager what happened. Her manager, a guy named Dave, was sympathetic but told her there wasn't much they could do unless Marcus actually did something. He offered to let other drivers take his orders, but Sarah declined. She didn't want to seem like she couldn't handle it. She regretted that decision. Over the next few weeks, Marcus's behavior got worse. He started calling the restaurant multiple times a night, even when he wasn't ordering. He'd ask to speak to Sarah specifically. When she got on the phone, he'd just breathe heavily for a few seconds and then hang up. One night, Sarah was delivering his pizza, and when she got to apartment 4B, the door was already open. Not just unlocked, wide open. The apartment was dark inside. "Hello?" Sarah called out, standing in the doorway. No response. She considered just leaving the pizza on the floor and getting out of there. But then she heard a voice from inside the apartment. "Come in." It was Marcus. "I'm not allowed to go inside customers' apartments," Sarah said firmly. "I can leave the pizza here if you want." "Please," Marcus said, his voice pleading. "I need to show you something. It'll just take a second." Every instinct in Sarah's body was screaming at her to leave. But something about the desperation in his voice made her hesitate. "What do you need to show me?" she asked. There was a long pause. Then Marcus stepped into view. Sarah gasped. He was holding a knife. A long, serrated kitchen knife. "I'm sorry," Marcus said, tears streaming down his face. "I didn't want it to be like this. But you won't talk to me. You won't give me a chance." Sarah dropped the pizza and ran. She sprinted down the hallway, down the stairs, and into the parking lot. She could hear Marcus behind her, his footsteps pounding against the pavement. She reached her car and fumbled with her keys, her hands shaking so badly she could barely get the key in the lock. She finally got the door open, jumped inside, and hit the lock button. Marcus was right there, slamming his hand against her window. "Please," he shouted. "Just talk to me. That's all I want." Sarah started the car and floored it, tires squealing. She didn't stop until she reached a gas station a few miles away. She called the police, and they sent a unit to Marcus's apartment. When the cops arrived, Marcus was gone. The apartment was empty, not just empty of people, but empty of everything. No furniture, no belongings, nothing. Just bare walls and floors. It looked like no one had lived there in years. The apartment manager told the police that apartment 4B had been vacant for 6 months. There was no record of anyone named Marcus ever living there. But Sarah had delivered pizzas to that apartment dozens of times. She had his address, his phone number, his order history. The police investigated, but they never found Marcus. His phone number was disconnected. There was no record of him in any database. It was like he never existed. Sarah quit her job the next day. She moved to a different part of town and never worked in food delivery again. But sometimes, late at night, she'll get a phone call from an unknown number. She never answers. But when it goes to voicemail, all she hears is breathing. And once, just once, she heard a voice. "I'm still thinking about you." Story 3. The road that doesn't exist. This final story is probably the strangest one I've ever heard. It comes from a guy named Jake, who was working as a pizza delivery driver in rural Oregon in 2021. Jake was in his early 20s, and he'd been delivering pizzas for about a year. It was a pretty chill job for the most part. His town was small, and he knew all the roads like the back of his hand. Or at least, he thought he did. It was a Saturday night, around 11 p.m. The restaurant was slammed because there was a big football game on TV, and everyone was ordering food. Jake had just finished a delivery and was heading back to the restaurant when he got a call from his manager. "Hey, I need you to take one more delivery before you come back," his manager said. "It's on Pinewood Drive. Should be quick." Jake frowned. "Pinewood Drive? I've never heard of that." "Really? GPS says it's only about 10 minutes from where you are now." "All right, I'll find it," Jake said, though he still felt uneasy. He'd lived in this town his whole life. He knew every street, every back road, every shortcut. How had he never heard of Pinewood Drive? He punched the address into his GPS, and sure enough, a route popped up. 10 minutes away, just like his manager said. The GPS directed him onto a road he'd driven 100 times before, Old Mill Road. But after a few minutes, it told him to make a left turn onto a road he'd never noticed before. Jake slowed down and looked. There, barely visible in the darkness, was a narrow dirt road branching off from Old Mill Road. There was no street sign, no reflectors, nothing. Just a gap in the trees. "That's weird," Jake muttered to himself. But his GPS insisted this was the way, so he turned onto the dirt road. The moment his car left the paved road, the temperature seemed to drop. Jake cranked up the heat, but it didn't help. The dirt road was narrow, barely wide enough for one car, and the trees on either side were so dense that his headlights couldn't penetrate them. It felt like he was driving through a tunnel. After a few minutes, his GPS announced, "In 500 feet, your destination will be on the right." Jake looked around. There was nothing here. No houses, no buildings, just trees and darkness. But then his headlights caught something. Up ahead, on the right side of the road, was a mailbox. A rusted, leaning mailbox with the number 237 painted on the side. Jake pulled up next to it and saw a driveway, or what used to be a driveway. It was so overgrown with weeds and bushes that it was barely passable. But his GPS insisted this was the place. He grabbed the pizza and stepped out of his car. The silence was overwhelming. No sounds of traffic from Old Mill Road, no animals, nothing. Just the faint rustle of wind through the trees. Jake walked up the driveway, pushing through branches and overgrown weeds. After about 50 feet, the trees opened up, and he saw the house. It was small, just a one-story cabin, really. But it was in pristine condition. The paint looked fresh, the porch was clean, and there were warm lights glowing in the windows. Smoke was even curling up from the chimney. Jake felt a wave of relief. Okay, so it was just a secluded cabin. Probably some recluse who liked their privacy. No big deal. He walked up to the front door and knocked. A few seconds later, the door opened, and Jake found himself face to face with an elderly woman. She had white hair pulled back in a bun and wore a floral dress that looked like it was from the 1950s. She smiled warmly at him. "Oh, wonderful! I was starting to think you got lost," she said. "Yeah, this place is a little hard to find," Jake said with a nervous laugh. He handed her the pizza. "That'll be $18.75. The woman reached into her pocket and pulled out a $20 bill. But as Jake took it, he noticed something strange. The bill looked old. The design was different from modern 20s. And when he looked closer, he saw the date printed on it, 1987. Ma'am, do you have a different bill?" Jake asked. "This one's pretty old. I don't think my manager will accept it." The woman's smile faltered. "Old? But I just got that from the bank yesterday." Jake felt a knot form in his stomach. "What year do you think it is?" The woman laughed, but it was a confused laugh. "What kind of question is that?" "It's 1987, of course." Jake's blood ran cold. "Ma'am, it's 2021. The woman stared at him, her smile completely gone now. "That's not funny." "I'm not joking," Jake said, pulling out his phone to show her the date. But the moment he looked at his phone, his heart sank. The screen showed no service. And the date on his phone read, September 14th, 1987. "What the hell?" Jake whispered. The woman's expression shifted from confusion to fear. "Who are you?" she asked, backing away. "Why are you saying these things?" I don't understand," Jake stammered. He looked around, panic rising in his chest. "This doesn't make sense." The woman slammed the door in his face. Jake stood there, frozen, trying to process what was happening. His phone said it was 1987. The woman thought it was 1987. But that was impossible. He just left the restaurant 20 minutes ago, and it had definitely been 2021. He turned and ran back to his car. He had to get out of here. He had to get back to the main road. But when he reached his car, he noticed something that made his stomach drop. His car was different. It was still his car, same make, same model. But it looked newer. The paint wasn't faded, the dents were gone, and the interior looked brand new. Jake jumped in and started the engine. He threw the car in reverse and sped back down the driveway, branches scraping against the sides. When he reached the dirt road, he turned and floored it, desperate to get back to Old Mill Road. But the dirt road seemed longer now. He drove for what felt like 10 minutes, then 15. But he never reached Old Mill Road. The trees just kept going, stretching endlessly in every direction. Jake was hyperventilating now, gripping the steering wheel so hard his knuckles turned white. His GPS was useless. It just showed a blank screen. And then, finally, he saw it. Up ahead, the trees broke, and he saw the paved surface of Old Mill Road. Jake nearly cried with relief. He pulled onto the main road and didn't stop driving until he saw the lights of town. When he got back to the restaurant, his manager was furious. "Where the hell have you been? You've been gone for 3 hours." 3 hours? Jake said. "No, I was only gone for like 30 minutes. Check your phone, dumbass." Jake pulled out his phone. The date was correct now, 2021. But the time showed it was 2:15 a.m. He'd left the restaurant at 11 p.m. 3.5 hours had passed. His manager demanded an explanation, but Jake didn't have one. He tried to describe what happened: the dirt road, the cabin, the woman who thought it was 1987. His manager thought he was on drugs and sent him home. The next day, Jake tried to find Pinewood Drive again. He drove up and down Old Mill Road for hours, looking for that dirt road. But it wasn't there. He asked locals if they'd ever heard of Pinewood Drive. No one had. He even went to the town library and searched through old records and maps. There was no Pinewood Drive. There never had been. Jake quit his job a week later. He couldn't shake the feeling that something had happened to him that night, something he couldn't explain. But here's the part that really messes with him. A few months after the incident, Jake was looking through some old family photos. And he found one that made his blood run cold. It was a photo from 1987. His grandmother's house. And standing in the background, barely visible, was a pizza delivery car. His car. So there you have it, 3 stories that'll make you think twice about delivering pizza late at night. Or ordering it, for that matter. Tyler never found out who, or what, ordered that pizza from the abandoned house. Sarah never discovered who Marcus really was, or where he went. And Jake still doesn't know what happened to him on that road that doesn't exist. Sometimes, the scariest things in life are the ones we can't explain. Thanks for watching, everyone. If you have your own creepy delivery stories, leave them in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe. Until next time, stay safe out there. And maybe, think twice before you answer that door.